Hello and welcome to my AS Media podcast for evaluation question 7. What have I learned since the preliminary task? First I'd like to touch on tools and especially Photoshop and the things we use to create it. Photoshop was the tool I used to construct the original preliminary task and most of the main task. The things I learned were generally just using new tools or streamlining the process of using the old ones. One new tool was using drop shadows, which really helped to create my particular house style, represent my genre, because I chose heavy metal as my genre, and the drop shadow helped to bring out sort of that dark nature of it. The real big change was in using InDesign, which was the program used for the construction of the double page spread. InDesign was a major change from Photoshop in the sense that it was harder to implement some things, probably because of the difference in layout and some of the tools being rather hard to use at some points for me personally. However, I did get used to it, and it came with some benefits, such as being able to drag new text boxes from old ones and having it keep the text, allowing for streamlined article placement. Also, the addition of columns meant that the article itself was easy to structure on the page. Another piece of technology I learned to use was Wix itself, the website software we all had to learn to use to present our work. I had to learn how to make a professional yet interesting website that would contain all of the work in easy-to-read manner and a logical order. The site itself helped immensely, as cataloguing research wasn't something I had to do before in the prelim task, and Wix allowed for easy manipulation and creation of pages. This meant I could create new pages for every new piece of work, and categorize it under the several main headings at the top of the page. With all that said on technology, I would like to move on to my magazine. The front cover of my prelim task, if you look at it right now, it's okay. It's not the worst piece of work I've ever done. It's okay, but that's all it is. The masthead at the top is in the top banner, and it looks far too small. It doesn't look like a masthead at all. It looks sort of rubbish, if I'm honest. The school badge next to it sort of makes sense, but the words are just too small. And the fact that it's exactly the same as the bottom banner definitely makes it just seem like it's another banner and nothing at all. And it makes it, and also the bottom banner, even though it is supposed to be my main article, it doesn't look like it is. It looks like a bottom banner. In fact, it looks like there is no real masthead or article title on my cover. In the cover lines as well, while I have got some of the colours correct, the problem with it is that there are far too many fonts. If I can count, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's at least 8 fonts on there, 8 different fonts, and it just, although using different fonts was extremely good to draw attention to certain things or highlight certain things, that many is just far too much. And it was something I definitely learned from. It's all those 3 things I definitely learned from, because in my main task there's a lot more usage of just 3 fonts. There are just 3 fonts used. One is used to highlight names of bands or people. One is used for different numbers, for instance the 6 and 10 there in that separate font, and then finally a font called Century Gothic, which I used for everything else except my masthead and my main article, which as you can see now are definitely not in the banners. The masthead thrash definitely stands out across the page. If you were to look at it, you would definitely say that that is the title of the magazine. And then obviously the bottom banner is there by itself. The main article is much more towards the centre of the page, even though still being sort of towards the bottom. It's more central. And as I talked about with the use of drop shadows, the drop shadow below that definitely helps create a house style, which is something I'll briefly like to touch on here before going into the contents page. The house style, I did manage to create a decent house style for the prelim task using the blue, using dark blue and yellow and white, while having a yellow title, several yellow pieces of text, and then blue text just to sort of differentiate. Although I think I mainly used the blue text and the yellow text differently because it was harder to place the yellow text on the top part of the screen, or of the front cover, sorry, because the yellow text just didn't show up properly, so I had to change it to blue. But that helped with the house style anyway. And then on the contents, I definitely kept that, especially with the school's emblem in the background. Keeping the school emblem from the front page and putting it in the background on the contents page definitely keeps that house style, as well as the colours. Going on to the contents page, I have managed to create a 3-column system which makes it look professional and something that all magazines mainly do. However, if I had to make bad comments about it, I suppose, the title at the top, contents, although it's in the right place, it just looks cramped. It looks completely cramped between the side of the magazine and the picture at the top there. Also, that picture at the top, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just a picture of the front of a school, and it really doesn't help accentuate any part of the magazine whatsoever, which is what it should be doing. It should be helping to show what the magazine is trying to portray, or this section of the magazine, or this magazine in particular. The picture towards the bottom it's alright as well, and I believe there is there it is. If you look at the sports section of it, there is the sporting achievements, which I did highlight in white. Overall in text, highlighting things was much easier in this one, because it meant I just changed the colour to a house style colour, which was white. I just changed it anything I wanted to look different or stand out. Also capitalising some of the things like enrichment activities, what should you choose? Highlighting the U, white, and capitalising it. On my main contents page, I definitely tried to combat the issue of the contents being cramped. I didn't keep it cramped in the corner. I made sure that it was bold across the top, took across the main image on the contents page, had a drop shadow continuing that house style I talked about, had the same kind of masthead as the original, and it definitely looks much better that way. That's something I definitely learned. Also, the main image is now the main image of my artist that I had from the front page, and it definitely ties those two pages together. So if you were to put those two pages together, you definitely say, yes, these were from the same magazine. Especially because in this one, the house style I used was red, white, and black. And the reason I use that is because those are really the colours of rock and heavy metal music. They represent the grunge genre. The red is supposed to be representative of blood, and that's the violent part of it. And black and white really do create a very good contrast, as they're opposite ends of the spectrum. I kept the 3-column system, except this time I went for 2 columns of text with minor descriptions for each of them. Something I learned by looking at it. Giving a minor description of an article, or just some of them, helps to highlight certain articles. Whereas in the prelim task, I just gave a description of what was happening on each page, no actual title for it. Although that could be because in this one I decided to name a band for each of the titles of pages. Also, there's a section for the editor's note of the magazine, which is something I didn't add in the prelim task, although I found that in media, especially music magazines, there are some magazines that do that. There are editor sections where editors can just write whatever they want about that particular magazine. And so I did that to sort of conform to the magazine convention, which is ironically another thing I learned, magazine conventions. Obviously I had to learn where to put everything on a page. The 3-column system, I already sort of learned that. But yeah, also had to have more pictures on the contents page. On my prelim there's only 2. One of them makes no sense and the other one's just sort of thrown in there. Whereas these ones all made sense. I made sure I highlighted the main image at the top, dominates the top half of the page, and then 2 minor ones down at the bottom that are just sort of there to highlight certain bits. For instance, the Slipknot contest ties to the Win Slipknot sign stuff on the top of my front cover. Okay, I think that's all I have to talk about. Moving on finally to the double page spread. Double page spread, obviously had to use InDesign for this, which is something I've already talked about. And InDesign really allowed the construction of the double page spread to come to life, as I've talked about, with the whole 3-column system and constructing the article. Obviously, as you can see, I kept the same house style throughout the entire thing. Pull quotes was something I had to learn about, because obviously we didn't construct a DPS for the prelim task, and the pull quotes was something I added in. And with those pull quotes, it really helps to construct an authentic narrative voice, as essentially this was a piece of creative writing. And really, they do just help they do stand out on the page. They're like, especially the two on the bottom page, the second double page spread. They really stand out. Also, having two double page spreads, that was a decision on my part to have, because I looked at several magazines, and very few magazines for their main article have just one double page for their main article. It's just something that happens, and it meant that I could have a large picture on the first one showing the artist and a bit of the background, and then a small amount of text, and then having the main article on the second page, another picture of the artist. Something that helped me particularly was having the text wrapping feature on InDesign, which meant that I could easily wrap text around the pull quote, so that pull quote in the middle of the article is there because it wraps around the text, or the text wrapped around it, sorry. Also, the page numbers, had to add those in. And obviously that's just something that comes with every magazine, obviously. So yeah, I think the main things that I've learned are magazine conventions, how to create a more authentic house style, and how to make a more presentable magazine, if I had to summarise it all. Okay, yeah.